everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Sailor Moon Cosmos movies and see how true to the manga they are, as well as break down any other hidden Easter eggs and lore that we see in this movie. In April of 2022, it was announced that the sequel covering the Stars arc of the manga was to be produced as a two-part anime film project titled Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon Cosmos the Movie. The movie was released in Japan on June 9th and the 30th of 2023, but it gets its worldwide release on August 22nd, 2024 on Netflix. For this video, I reread Volume 9 and Volume 10 of the Sailor Moon Eternal edition of the manga. The majority of the staff was used for the Eternals movie was also used for the Cosmos movie. Naoko Takeuchi is still listed as chief supervisor for the film's production, and Kazuko Tadano, who worked on the original series back in the 90s, returned as character designer for the movies as well. Studio Dean has still co-animated these movies with Toei Animation. The director Tomoyo Takahashi said in an interview that this is a movie that was created with the intention of reaching out to all Sailor Moon fans. This was also because the director was given more freedom for this as well. He took the opportunity to include visual homages to Sailor Moon franchise that includes the manga, the 90s series, and even the live action series from back in 2003. Reading the interviews from the visual book, I could tell the creators worked really hard on this movie and did their research on the original series and the manga. Also, I'm going to talk more about the voice cast in this breakdown as well because there was a lot of homages and Easter eggs involving the voice cast. Now, since this is not going to be episodic like the first 3 seasons, I decided to keep the same format I've been using. I'm going to list out the chapters and we shall review from there if the movie did a good job, chapter by chapter. I will not be making too many references to the original series story, as the creators have stated that this series will not be a remake of the original 90s series, but a reboot that follows closely to the manga. So we're gonna see how close it actually follows. And with that, let's go ahead and talk about it. Roll the new intro. Okay, first call out. What's with these unoriginal chapter names? At least with the last few arcs, they had unique titles to go with the chapters. This one is just listing stars 1 through 11. That's pretty boring. Act 50, Stars 1. The opening of this film is Usagi talking about how each and every person has a star in their hearts, which, like Past Me said at the end of the Eternals movie, Usagi was talking about the same thing, and I said this is a nice segue into the Cosmos movie. But I like that they used the similar art we saw in the manga when they were talking about this. Then we see that Usagi and Mamoru are spending time together. We see the same thing in the manga. We see Usagi and Mamoru are looking at the meteor shower, and even the Outer Guardians are watching as well. Then we see someone is looking at the planet Earth, and we hear an unfamiliar voice, and it is the new villain of this movie. Her name is Galaxica. She is talking about how she will be the ruler of this galaxy, and soon Earth will be hers. Then we get the opening to this movie, and as a 90s fan, this made me so excited to hear this. We hear a very familiar opening of the OG Sailor Moon intro, the return of the iconic opening theme, Moonlight Legend. And I think one of the coolest things that they did was they actually got all the voice actors of the Sailor Guardians to sing this opening. The voices of Sailor Neptune and Uranus, they actually sang the ending theme song for season 3, and now it's the rest of the voice actors' turns, and it turned out great. And even the animation is playing huge homages to the original series. It is taking different seasons openings and combining them. And let's go ahead and break down this intro. This intro of them posing, it makes me think of the ending of season 4 with all of them posing like this, and then them flying into the camera is homage to the season 4 opening, but then it changes to the opening of season 3 of them flying through the air, and then quickly changes right back into the season 4 intro. Then we see more of the season 3 opening. They had to add some originality to it because Chibi Chibi is in here as well now, and I used to love watching this in the season 3 intro of Sailor Moon flying around the screen, and then behind her we're seeing the different guardians doing their attacks. Just now this time we get an extra scene of Pluto and Saturn in there. Usagi looking at this figure makes me think of the season 4 opening when Sailor Chibi Moon is looking at Helios. Then the final homage is all of them here like we saw in the season 3 opening. This was a really nice touch for all the older fans who grew up on this series. The movie is playing out just like the manga. From Usagi waking up and the girls heading to school, I like that they added showing Usagi running through the school and seeing her friends. In the manga, you just saw quick panels of the girls, and you're seeing it through Usagi's eyes. I love the fact that we get to see Michiru and Haruka also enjoying high school life as well. Haruka points out that they have traveled all over the world, Michiru's even performed at concerts, and they've even raised a kid, but they want to go back to high school. And Michiru points out that they have been giving amazing opportunities to enjoy their youth again. And we see Setsuna is also enjoying her life as a school nurse. It is so stinking cute seeing all the kids come to see Setsuna after they found out that she is Hotaru's mom. I love seeing the Outer Guardians really enjoying their lives with the other Guardians as well. Their previous lives were in solitude. They were guarding the Moon Kingdom from far away from everyone. They had no one to talk to, and it was a lonely life that they had. And seeing even in the last movie that this new life that they can protect everyone without being far away from each other. And seeing them enjoy their lives is just so stinking cute. I love it, and they totally deserve this. Minako and the others are talking about Usagi seeing off Mamoru, and then Minako brings up new characters in this movie. They're a new group idol called the Three Lights. Turns out that Michiru knows who they are and gets to play with them soon. And like I said a minute ago, seeing all of them enjoying their high school lives is so cute. The movie is doing a good job following this chapter, and when we get to the airport scene when Usagi sees Mamoru off, Mamoru gives Usagi a ring, and he's getting ready to say, "When I get back, let's," and then he is interrupted. He is attacked and we see a crystal come out of Mamoru, and then a hand appears and takes that crystal, and Mamoru turns to dust and disappears right in front of Usagi. And we see Sailor Galaxia. And Sailor Galaxia leaves and Usagi passes out, and Seiya and the other Three Lights catch Usagi and leave the airport. The Three Lights are talking about how they were too late, but then Usagi wakes up and wants to get out of the cab, and you could tell there's something off with her. She isn't all there. The next day, whenever someone brings up Mamoru, you could see in her eyes they're empty. She looks very robot-like and even talks like it too. Then we see Chibiusa talking to Rei about going back to the 30th century. So much has happened with Helios and her future guardians. While these flashbacks are going, we also see that she's telling the Outer Guardians this as well. But in the manga, she was just talking to the Outer Guardians. Rei wasn't shown in the conversation, but not that big of a difference. Chibiusa goes back and all the Guardians see her off. They're talking about how lonely things will be without Chibiusa and Mamoru, but Usagi is talking like a robot again, with her empty eyes saying that everything will be fine. They'll be back. Then we get to the concert, and once they finish the show, we see our first look at one of the new villains who is part of the Sailor Anima Mates. She can sense the Star Crystal and can sense 10 of them actually all in one place. Her name is Sailor Iron Mouse. Now this time around, the enemies are named after different metals. She first attacks the stage and tries to hit the Starlights. She finds the other Guardians and they all transform. And we see Sailor Moon transform, and this is a brand new transformation for this movie. The Guardians are going by their new names: Eternal Sailor Mercury, Eternal Sailor Mars, Eternal Sailor Jupiter, and Eternal Sailor Venus. And finally, Eternal Sailor Moon. Then we see Neptune and Uranus jump in the fight as well. This is the first time we get to see Uranus and Neptune's new attacks animated. We see Uranus using her space turbulence, and Neptune used her new ability, Submarine Violin Tide. And I love that they added the violin music playing in the background when she does this attack. They stopped Sailor Iron Mouse attack, but then all of a sudden, new players have joined the fight, and someone takes out Sailor Iron Mouse out. And when she dissolves and turns into dust, we see Usagi has a flashback to Mamoru. The three new characters do not introduce themselves and instead take off. Act 51, Stars 2. So in the manga, we get a glimpse of Usagi's dream, and we see that she is with Mamoru, but all of a sudden he turns into dust and begins to crumble, and then Usagi wakes up. And then this is where the movie actually picks up, when she wakes up. Usagi hasn't gotten any letters and wonders how he is doing in America. Then all of a sudden the little girl is pulling a Mary Poppins and comes floating down out of the sky with her umbrella. This little girl finds another woman laying down unconscious, and she comes to Usagi's home. Now when the girls meet up in command, they are discussing this new enemy they have. Now in the manga, the question is raised if this new enemy could be another person from their past lives, but the Outer Guardians talk about how they don't think so, but the universe is so big. That was a small difference here from the movie and the manga, and it's not too big of a deal, but I don't see why they couldn't just add that. Otherwise, the question is asked if they are from another planet then. And they talk about how that is more than likely it. And then they talk about how the idol group Starlights have cosmic powers as well. Uranus says she doesn't know why they're posing as idols, but she does know that they're not from their solar system. And now fast forward, we see Chibi Chibi is at Usagi's house, and Usagi's mother explains that it's her little sister. Only a slight difference here is in the manga, it's still dark out when everyone comes over to see Chibi Chibi, and Usagi's mom kicks them all out because they all need to go to bed because everyone has school. Which, I don't know, to me felt like they should have just left it at night. It would have saved more time on animating the fact that it went from night to day. but who knows why they made that choice. The next day when Usagi checks the mail, she sees that there's mail from America, and it's a card of a sunset. And when she gets to school, the idol group Three Lights transferred into their school. We are introduced to Taiki Ko, and his name means atmosphere. And his English voice is done by Erica Harlacher, and I hope I said her last name right. And she's done the voice of Shinobu Kocho from Demon Slayer. His Japanese voice is done by Saori Hayami, and she just recently did the voice of Hulkenberg from the new Metaphor game. Then we're introduced to Yaten Ko, and his name means night sky. His English voice is done by Sarah Williams, and she plays the voice of Midari from, and forgive me, this name has always been a tongue twister for me, I love this anime, but I always get it wrong, Kakeguri? His Japanese voice is done by Ayane Sakura, and she plays Nightfall from Spy Family. And finally we have Seiya Ko, and his name means Fields of Stars. Their last name, Ko, means light, which is likely the inspiration for their group names. And his English voice is done by Melissa Hutchinson, and she's played the voice of Katie Forster from Yokai Watch. Her Japanese voice is done by Marina Inoue, and she plays Mamoru Yayurozu, which I hope I just said that right, from My Hero Academia. And somehow the three of them get transferred into Usagi's class. Coincidence? I think not. When we see Usagi on the roof writing her letter to Mamoru, the Three Lights show up. Seiya asks about Usagi's boyfriend and where he is. You know he's trying to get her to remember. He was there at the beginning of the movie, so he saw it. But when Usagi starts to say that he is in America, her head starts to hurt, and Haruka tells them to get away from Usagi. I had a flashback when this moment happened, back to season 3. Haruka was trying to talk to Usagi, but the inner guardians told Haruka to stay away from her. I always thought it was a nice thing to see how protective they were of their princess. Even back in the original 90s series, we saw how protective Haruka and Michiru were of Usagi whenever the Starlights came around. This movie's doing a good job sticking with the manga, from the concert all the way up to Sailor Aluminum Siren showing up and attacking the Starlights and Usagi. Jupiter and Mercury come in and block the attack and protect everyone, but then Sailor Aluminum Siren attacks Mercury and Jupiter and traps them. Uranus tries to save them, but her attack was deflected. Aluminum Siren explains that she is a Sailor Guardian also, who has her own crystal. Sailor Moon tries to attack her as well, but sadly she wasn't in time. Sailor Aluminum Siren attacks, and she turns Sailor Jupiter and Mercury into dust and steals their Sailor crystals. I remember reading this years ago and being shocked by this. The Starlights transform into their scout forms. Naoko Takeuchi confirmed that only females can be Sailor Guardians. So that's why we see them transform into females. They defeat Sailor Aluminum Siren, and they introduce themselves as Sailor Star Fighter, Sailor Star Healer, and Sailor Star Maker. Act 52, Stars 3. We see that Rei, Setsuna, and Haruka can sense that something has happened to Jupiter and Mercury. The Starlights are explaining who they are. We even see the smack that Uranus gives Venus to snap out of her shock. I don't think it's as dramatic as the manga. It looks like in the manga Uranus decks Venus, but it makes sense that it was just a slap. The Starlights are explaining that Sailor Aluminum Siren destroyed Sailor Jupiter and Mercury's physical bodies, and their crystals were taken. They explain that the other Guardians need to stop focusing on the Starlights as enemies and focus on Sailor Galaxia and her Shadow Galactica. As a viewer watching this, it's pretty crazy concept to watch Uranus point out that this time their enemy is other Guardians. These other Guardians came through the meteor shower that happened recently. That is why they were missed. They disguised themselves as falling stars. Yet again, it's doing a good job of sticking true to the manga. From Michiru taking Usagi home and Usagi contacting Mamoru's friend, all the way up to Seiya and Usagi seeing each other and Seiya trying to get Usagi to remember what happened to Mamoru. The Starlights show Michiru and Haruka what happened to their prince and who Sailor Galaxia is. And I love seeing this animated. We see more of Sailor Galaxia and the other Guardians. We're also now introduced to Sailor-led Crow. I thought this moment was random in the manga and they left it in the movie. We see Hotaru say, "No, I'm afraid it might be too late." And then that was it. It's like, okay, are you gonna elaborate more on this? What are you sensing, Hotaru? Too late for what? Whatever. It's another one of those shh. Let's move on. Rei is now sneaking into Juban High School with Minako. Rei and Minako are looking for the Starlights. Rei did a tarot card reading that morning as she got the Death card. She's concerned that this time they won't be coming back. But then Minako says, this time is no different than any other fight. They're going to rescue their friends and get them back. And they're going to enjoy their high school lives. Minako wants to get a boyfriend and is going on and on about her ideal boyfriend that she wants. And then we hear Yaten's voice saying, that's a bunch of lies. He calls Minako out. He says she's already devoted her entire life to one person, and Minako confirms it, that there is only one person she's dedicated her life to, and Rei agrees. And Rei says, she's right, we don't need men. If you have a problem with that, too bad. It's their lives. The Starlights point out that that's what makes them true guardians, and Rei and Minako transform. They tell the Starlights to transform to prove that they're also guardians. Sailor Star Healer gives Mars a new card and says this is the card after death. And it looks like it's a card with a galaxy on it. Then Rei feels a powerful dark energy coming from the south, and we see Sailor Led Crow is at the Higurashi Shrine, and Sailor Led Crow is confronting Phobos and Deimos. So a little note about the manga for this. In the manga, Rei says it's coming from the direction of the horse, and I read that as, what? Horse? Turns out the 12 signs of the lunar zodiac are not only applied to the years and hours of the day, but the direction as well. It starts with the rat in the north and goes clockwise. The horse is the 7th sign of the zodiac, which puts it in the south. In other words, Rei is using a mystical saying of, enemy, 6 o'clock. The more you know, guys. Act 53, Stars 4. Led Crow and Phobos and Deimos know each other. They came from the same home planet of Coronus. They trained together back in their homeworld. Back on their home planet Coronus, Phobos and Deimos were chosen to be Mars's companions in the solar system. They were even lucky enough to get moons named after them as well. Led Crow explains, everything in the galaxy possesses a star seed, but only a select few are Sailor Crystals. Having a Sailor Crystal means they are Sailor Guardians. Phobos and Deimos are shocked that Led Crow has become a Sailor Guardian. The only other Sailor Guardian on Coronus is Sailor Coronus. Led Crow explains that since she has pledged her life to Galaxia, Galaxia says that Led Crow can one day have her own planet. She explains that Coronus and everyone is gone. And a quick little fact about Coronus. The name Coronus may be derived from Greek Korone, meaning crow, or Greek Coronus, meaning the curved one. Either way, it appears in Greek mythology in relation to crows more than once. Most notably, a lover of Apollo named Coronus was unfaithful to him, and it was a crow that gave Apollo the news of their affair. That's a lot of crows mentioned. Mars and Venus get back there, but it's too late. Led Crow's already destroyed their bodies and took their crystals. Rei uses her flame sniper to attack Led Crow, but Led Crow was able to trap Sailor Mars, and Venus can't help. So Venus calls the Sailor Moon, and Uranus and Neptune also heard it. When Sailor Moon arrives, she defeats Led Crow with her Starlight Honeymoon Therapy Kiss, and right when they're having a happy reunion, Galaxia does a cheap attack from behind and destroys Mars and Venus's bodies and takes their crystal. Now Galaxia has taken all of the inner guardians and Mamoru. Now for me rereading this, my memory of this attack was that Galaxia was burning them alive for whatever reason. But rereading it and seeing this movie, my mind exaggerated those moments, and it turns out, just like the movie, they get turned to sand. The movie is still staying true to the manga. We see the 30th century, and then we also see the outer guardians decide to go back to their castles to set up a barrier, and then all the way up to the Starlight seeing Usagi to make sure that she was okay. The Starlights are explaining that Galaxia is attacking the other guardians as well. This happened with the Starlights and their princess. They're also explaining that Rei and the others' human selves have died. Yaten explains that it's only their physical bodies, but Sailor Crystals contain unknown power and will never fade away, and that is why Galaxia is desperate to get her hands on them. The next day at school, there is another new student that is joining Usagi's class. Convenient? I think not. We see the outer guardians come back to their castles. When Pluto is looking into the other guardians, she's attacked by Galaxia. Galaxia destroys Guardian Pluto, and we see Pluto fighting Galaxia, but then the screen cuts off, and Hotaru can sense it and teleports to her. Then back at the school, we see the transfer student come to hang out with Usagi, but Luna and Artemis tell her to show her true form and call her a demon cat. We see the Starlights also appear in Usagi's room, and they want the incense burner, and Chibi Chibi doesn't want to give it up. But then you hear a voice, and it's the Starlight Princess appears before them. Act 54, Stars 5. So it turns out that Chibi Chibi is also a Sailor Guardian, and we see her transform. Then back at the school, Luna and Artemis confronted this new student, and she transforms and attacks Luna and Artemis, and they transform into their human forms and try to make their escape. Usagi transforms into Sailor Moon, and then jumps in front of the attack aimed at Luna and Artemis. This new enemy introduces herself as Sailor 10 Nyanko, and that confirms to Luna and Artemis that she came from the planet Mao. Little fun fact about Mao. Mao means cat in Egypt, where cats were highly honored for killing venomous snakes and scorpions. There were two feline Egyptian goddesses, both who seemed as protectors. Sailor 10 Nyanko explains that the planet is gone thanks to Galaxia. When Sailor 10 Nyanko goes in for the attack, Diana blocks the attack and transforms back into a cat. After that attack, Diana can't speak. Sailor Moon continues to try to block the attacks, but one gets past her and attacks Luna and Artemis. They transform back into their cat forms, and the Starlights come to help Sailor Moon. When they get back to the Starlights' home, Usagi meets Princess Kakyu from Tenkai nearby kingdom of the planet Kinmoku. Her English voice is done by Allegra Clark, who is also known for the voice of Maki Zen from Jujutsu Kaisen. Her Japanese voice is done by Nana Mizuki, who plays the voice of Hinata from Naruto. It turns out the reason why Sailor Moon is so popular is because of that moment the prince and princess used their power in the Eternal movie. Their power was noticed across the entire galaxy. Also, the reason why Luna and Artemis and Diana cannot speak is because of that attack they received damaged their moon crescents. That was what gave them the ability to speak. If you remember way back in episode 1, Luna was unable to speak or use her powers because those kids put a bandage on her head. Princess Kaku explains that Galaxia is out there destroying all the planets. Galaxia also looks for young soldiers as well who are desperate for power to help her. The guardians they have been fighting for are not true guardians. They are used and controlled by Galaxia with those bracelets. Sailor Galaxia is a guardian of destruction. Galaxia's ultimate and final target is Sailor Moon, because Sailor Moon holds the silver crystal. Usagi has a flashback to season 2 when Sapphire tried to kill her. Usagi wants to know where Galaxia is so she can confront her and get her friends back. And then fast forwarding a little bit, I love the artwork that they showed of Sailor Moon with the heavy wings that Seiya is describing. Seiya comforts Usagi when she is depressed, and Seiya goes in and kisses her. Naughty, naughty Usagi. This is now what, the 3rd time she's been kissed by someone other than Mamoru? I love seeing this animated and I fangirled so hard. When Usagi and Chibi Chibi are at the park, they see a woman walking towards them, and I freaking love Galaxia's look. Also, a quick note here, where does Galaxia hide her hair? She has so much hair. I, for one, can't even imagine brushing that hair, and 2, how does she fit all that into that headpiece? I want to know her secrets. Alright, let's get back to the movie. When Galaxia shows off her power, holy crap was it so good to look at in this movie. When I saw that in the trailer, I lost my mind. She is so powerful, and you can see she's destroying everything around her. Act 55, Star 6. Galaxia is destroying the city, and more than likely the planet with her power. Usagi says she can't handle this alone and tries to call Uranus and Neptune and Pluto, but she senses something is wrong, and we see them turn to dust. Usagi says that she thinks this is an illusion, and she will get her friend's crystals back and save everyone. And then Galaxia comes in and asks, "Are you sure about that?" Galaxia is filling Usagi with doubt. She asks, "Will the future you see actually come to pass?" And just gently pushes Usagi. And oh my god, I freaking love this. Galaxia is a force to be reckoned with. Chibi Chibi grabs Usagi's hands, and then we see wings, and then the Holy Grail lights up. And Sailor Moon's power of rejuvenation revived the city. Then we're seeing a flashback of Galaxia on another planet. She's hunting for a planet that gives her more power. She says she has the power of a god and will keep hunting and looking for more power. Then she comes across a planet, and we see an old villain from season 2. It's Old Wise Man, or also known as Death Phantom. He's talking about where stars and planets are born from, and it's Sagittarius Zero Star at the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And we see Galaxia went there, and we hear a voice telling her that they will help her find the one true planet she seeks. This voice calls himself Chaos. And then we see Galaxia wakes up, and my question still stands, how does she fit all that hair into that hairpiece? Also, the hair color is so pretty. Sailor Galaxia's English voice is done by Carrie Karanen, and she actually played the voice of Mami from Madoka Magica. Her Japanese voice is done by Megumi Hayashibara, and she played the voice of Rei from Neon Genesis Evangelion. We also see the power of those bracelets have the power to kill the wearer as well, because Galaxia eliminates Tin Yanko. Then we see Usagi in a sea of some sort. It's a dream, and this is following the manga pretty well. Galaxia is there as well in that vision, and they are at Sagittarius Zero Star, and Galaxia says this is also her grave. And Usagi wakes up. She talks to Seiya and the others, and she has her resolve. She has to believe she can bring her friends back. She has to believe in that future that she saw. And the first movie ends with her saying she must face Galaxia. After the credits, we hear Galaxia's voice, and she says, "I'll keep fighting until you have nothing left." She says, "Only when a single shred of you remains, I'll finally tell you the truth." Man, this woman wants to destroy Sailor Moon, like beat her to her core. Now, the last chapter of Volume 9 is not done, but this was a good way to end the first movie. This movie did a good job overall following the manga. Now, moving on to part 2. The movie opens up just like where we left off in the manga. The next day, Usagi is asking her mother to take care of the cats for her while she's at school. And when Usagi says goodbye to her mom starts to cry and explains she just got a feeling that she would not see Usagi again. And you see the cats have the same feeling. Usagi and the others talk about how they need to go to the Outer Guardians castles because Usagi is worried about them. When they transform to head out, we see Sailor Moon's transformation, and it pays homage to the 90s series. We can see the homage to season 3's transformation, and I thought this was a nice touch that they did. They get to the Outer Guardians castle and just find a pile of sand in each of the castles. At Pluto's castle, they find a recording of Sailor Saturn and Pluto trying to fight off Galaxia. And for this movie, they added a little bit more more action to this scene. Saturn gets a hit on Galaxia and it looks like she was doing damage, but Galaxia was faking it and defeats Pluto and Saturn. Sailor Moon asks the Starlights to take her to Sagittarius Zero Star so she can confront Galaxia once and for all. And this is where volume 9 of the Eternal Edition manga ends. And now in the movie we're seeing the second opening play out, and it's a recreation of the original Sailor Moon Stars opening. The song is called Sailor Star Song, and it's actually performed by more of the Japanese voice casts. It's performed by the voice actors of Princess Kaku, Sailor Starfighter, Sailor Starmaker, and Sailor Star Healer. And just like the last movie, it pays homage to the older Sailor Moon openings. We see the intro to Sailor Moon Stars. I love seeing this as an older 90s fan. This was nice to see an updated version of this to include all of the Guardians. The original Star series opening did not have as much of the outer Guardians. And also, I think this scene of Usagi running here pays homage to one of the old endings as well. They did have to change up some things to match this movie because unfortunately, all the Guardians are gone. Thanks, Galaxia. But it's still awesome to see this. This final portion of the opening, I think it pays more tribute to the original battle with Queen Beryl and Princess Serenity, but overall, this was still really cool to watch. Act 56, Star 7. They make it to Sagittarius Zero Star. Princess Kaku explains that this is where all the stars are born. Everything comes from here. The movie's doing a good job following the manga. We see Sailor Moon's fallen into the enemy's trap, and I hate this part because we see Lethe attack Luna and Artemis and Diana. They were already helpless from the last attack, but leave it to Galaxia to make sure that Sailor Moon suffers. Then we see the movie jump to the 30th century and Chibiusa's trying to understand what is happening. And I know this isn't necessarily a good thing to see, but I love the color and design of all of them laying here. It's the same design that they used in the manga, but Chibiusa uses her new pink crystal and transforms into Sailor Chibi Moon, and her Sailor Quartets appear to help Sailor Chibi Moon. They don't really explain it, but you would think Neo Queen Serenity would know what is going on since this is a battle her past self had to face, but I guess not. I don't know, they aren't really explaining that here. Just like in the manga, we learn that Sailor Lethe and Sailor Nemozi's home planets were always at war. It's a constant chaos and misery, and then Galaxia appeared to destroy their planets. They had no choice and had to follow her. They said that if they follow Galaxia, she will unite the galaxy and have a better chance of a future filled with peace and happiness. Lethe asked Sailor Moon, under Sailor Moon's reign, will there be peace and happiness? Will there be a future with no war? And we see flashbacks to previous battles and wars, and Lethe explains that the power that Sailor Moon wields attracts war. As long as Sailor Moon exists, the fighting will never end. This really surprised me. This movie and these last two volumes show how much Sailor Moon has grown as a leader, and just her overall character growth. She's no longer the crybaby we saw back in episode 1. She tells Lethe that she must do what she must, and if so be it, then Lethe should kill Sailor Moon right then and there. She is there to end the war as well. Sailor Moon is aware that she has to end the fighting by fighting. Now, this next battle is a bit different in the movie than in the manga. They are attacked by Sailor Phi and Sailor Kai. They take out Lethe and Nemozine, and in the manga, when they attack Sailor Moon and Princess Kaku, Chibi blocks the attack and protects them, but sadly unable to protect the Starlights, and they lose their crystals. In this movie, it is the Starlights that jump in front of the attack to protect the princesses. We see in the movie the Starlights combine their power to try to stop them, but they're not strong enough and sacrifice themselves to protect the princesses. Act 57, Stars 8. So we learn that basically Sailor Galaxia's crystal is the opposite of Sailor Moon's crystal. As we know, Galaxia is the guardian of destruction. Her crystal is the Lazarite crystal, the most destructive force in the Milky Way, while Sailor Moon's crystal has infinite restorative powers. And if Galaxia has both, she will become invincible. Now to get into what Lazarite is, the mineral Lazarite forms the bulk of the gemstones known as lapis lazuli, and I hope I said that right. Interesting thing I read, it is still to this day considered to have magical powers. It is also a symbol of the royal as well as the divine. Now back in the movie we see Galaxia's transformation, and I will say it yet again, that is still impressive that all that hair can fit into that hairpiece. We see the next Sailor Anima mates, Sailor Heavy Metal Papillon, Hunter of Souls, which all I thought of when I saw her was rock on. Papillon is able to trap Sailor Moon and the others, but Sailor Chibi Moon and the Sailor Quartets come and save them. Quick little fact about Papillon, it's the French word for butterfly. Butterflies have been associated with death and the soul in many cultures, and in Greek. When they reunite, they have a small discussion about who Chibi is. They think maybe she's Usagi's second child, but the quartet said for generations the royal family has only given birth to one princess. Guess they don't believe in that old horrible saying of having an heir and a spare. They think maybe it could be Chibiusa's child, but Chibiusa can sense that she isn't Chibiusa's child. Sailor Phi and Sailor Kai appear, and we see Princess Kaku also transform into the Sailor Guardian. Sailor Kaku is doing a good job of holding her own, and then Sailor Moon takes one of them out, but sadly Sadly, Sailor Kai does a sneak attack and brutally takes out Princess Kakyu. In the manga, we see her staff go right through her. In this movie, they don't show it going through her completely. Sailor Moon takes out the last of Galaxia's Sailor Anima mates, and when she does, all of a sudden there is a blast that destroys Kakyu's body and takes her crystal, and we see behind Sailor Moon, it's the other Guardians. Act 58, Stars 9. We see all the Guardians, and you can see as a viewer something is off with them. Chibiusa and Chibi notice it because of the bracelets. Then we see Tuxedo Mask appear, and Sailor Moon is excited to see everyone, till we hear Tuxedo Mask say that Sailor Moon has finally arrived. Kill her. Then we see Sailor Mars and Mercury begin their attack on Sailor Moon. The Quartets try to block it. Chibiusa thinks that it's the bracelets, but Chibi shows Chibiusa what really happened to them all. Chibiusa understands that those aren't their friends. They are imposters. And we see Jupiter start her attack as well. This was really hard to watch. Pluto also then attacks Sailor Moon, and we see Uranus harness Galaxia's power to attack Chibi Moon. Sailor Moon doesn't want to believe that they aren't her friends, but Chibi Moon's trying to reason with her, and Sailor Saturn attacks them next, but Chibi blocks it, and we just see more and more of the Guardians harness more of Galaxia's power, and Sailor Moon is now on the defensive. Sailor Moon notices that the Guardians' attacks are more destructive. She is realizing that this isn't them. Sailor Moon tries to attack the inner Guardians, but her attack has no effect. It's because the crystal draws on Sailor Moon's emotions. She can't bring herself to hurt her friends, so they all combine their power and attack Sailor Moon, and it was pretty heavy to watch her wings get destroyed and then her staff also be destroyed. Sailor Moon does come around and we see her resolve, and she uses her new attack and takes out the fake Guardians. Hearing them all scream, it was hard to watch, and I feel sympathy for Sailor Moon in this moment. She chases after Mamoru and finally found Galaxia. Galaxia is cruel. She wants Sailor Moon to suffer. We see Tuxedo Mask go up to Galaxia and kisses her, and this was crazy to see. Galaxia claims Tuxedo Mask and the galaxy is hers, and she tells Sailor Moon if she wants them back, she has to take it. Then Sailor Moon will have to fight her and show Galaxia her strength, and Sailor Moon agrees. She will fight Galaxia. Now this fight is a little bit more drawn out in the movie compared to the manga, and I am all for it. We see Sailor Moon avoiding Galaxia's attack and blocking them. Act 59, Stars 10. We see them both attack each other, and this was so badass to see in this movie. Galaxia for a moment gains the upper hand on Sailor Moon, and this movie actually gave us more visuals and description of the pain and suffering Galaxia went through in her past before she awoke into Sailor Guardian powers. The thing is with Galaxia, she didn't want to be just an ordinary Guardian. She wanted to seek more power and came across Earth. Sailor Moon explains that they get their power from each other, basically pulling one of those power friendship cards, and Galaxia doesn't buy into that. She says that the logic is ultimately trash, and the only ones that they can depend on is themselves. They take their fight to the Galaxy Cauldron. It's the birthplace of all Sailor Guardians. Galaxia explains everything is created here, but also everything can die here, and she brings Mamoru and the Sailor Guardians crystals to this place and drops the crystals into the cauldron, ultimately killing Sailor Moon's friends once and for all. And then we see Sailor Moon's rage. She says she will never forgive Galaxia and attacks. And the final blow, Galaxia knocks over Mamoru into the cauldron, and we see Sailor Chibi Moon disappear, and we see Sailor Moon just break. Her power explodes, and chaos appears, being drawn to Sailor Moon's power. Galaxia tries to attack Sailor Moon, but Chibi blocks the attack. Galaxia appears, and we see Chaos essentially kicking Galaxia to the side because it's Sailor Moon that Chaos wants. Sailor Moon saves Galaxia though. Chaos explains that Sailor Moon's siblings were born from the cauldron and Sailor Moon defeated them, referring to the past villains that Sailor Moon has fought. And we see those past villains. Chaos explains that wherever there is light, there is darkness. Darkness calls to light, and the light in turn summons darkness. When Galaxia comes to, she asks why did Sailor Moon save her? They are enemies, but at this point Sailor Moon is just tired of fighting. She's lost everyone and she doesn't want to see any more Guardians die, so that is why she saved Galaxia. Galaxia has also given up on the fight as well. We finally hear Chibi talk. She says this will not end the war. Chibi explains that Sailor Moon needs to use the last of her strength to destroy Chaos and the Galaxy Cauldron. But if Sailor Moon does that, then that means there's no new heavenly bodies that can be born. The future of the galaxy will end right then. Is it Sailor Moon's turn to swing the scythe of death? Galaxia raises the question, if this galaxy is destroyed, can't a new one be born somewhere else? A new future to replace this one? She doesn't believe the end of fighting will be that simple. And Sailor Moon agrees. Hope and despair, light and dark, war and peace, happiness and sadness, they will always exist no matter what. She knows this because that is the way of the galaxy. We see Sailor Galaxia finally found the place where she belongs. Sadly though, she dissolves when she discovers it. Sailor Moon will not give up hope. She has faith in the future, and we see Chibi transform into her true form, and we get our first animated appearance of Sailor Cosmos. Sailor Moon understands stands now. Chaos, Queen Metalia, Death Phantom, Pharaoh 90, Nehelenia, and even Galaxia. They all seek Sailor Moon's power because it's the same as Sailor Moon seeking companionship with their friends. They're all lonely stars at first. They want to become one, to be together, and that is how it will end. And Sailor Moon takes a dive straight into the cauldron to embrace chaos. Sailor Moon will envelop this entire cauldron and save everyone. Act 60, Stars 11. Sailor Moon doesn't know if this plan will work, but she's gonna try. She will not give up hope. She asks all of the Sailor Guardians across the galaxy to help her, and in that moment we see the darkness that chaos was bringing had changed to light, and we see Usagi dissolve. We see Sailor Cosmos again. She explains that the crystals are returning to their home worlds and are being remolded back into their original forms. For the Japanese voice cast, they decided to go with Keiko Kiwagawa, who actually previously played Rei, aka Sailor Mars, in the 2003 live-action series to play Sailor Cosmos in this movie. They decided not to go with Kotono Mitsuishi because of Sailor Cosmos' solemn nature. She actually wanted the actress who played Sailor Moon in the live-action to play Sailor Cosmos, but after speaking to her former castmates, they told her to take the role. Now for the English dub, they just continue to have Stephanie Sheh play Cosmos, and I will admit, I thought it would have been cool to get one of the OG voice actors to come back to play Cosmos. But looking at why they made that choice in the Japanese version, I get it. Plus, Stephanie Sheh can tone her voice down to give us a more mature Sailor Moon. I also wonder if the English cast just was not aware of this choice that they did with the Japanese dub. Sailor Cosmos explains that this regenerative power happened because of all of the Sailor Guardian crystals became one. She explains that this is called Sailor Cosmos Lambda Power. I will say, I like Sailor Cosmos' look, but this is my hot take on her and even Neo Queen Serenity. I question what good are they? They keep having to go back to the past and ask their past self for help. Even Sailor Cosmos admits she is a coward. We also get a look at the future Sailor Chaos, and Sailor Cosmos explains that she is the most powerful enemy and the fighting just continues on. Sailor Cosmos explains that no one can erase the birthplace of stars, and Sailor Cosmos will not give up anymore. Then fast forward, we see Usagi laying in an empty space, and then we see she's reunited with Mamoru and all her friends. Even without their bodies, they could hear Usagi calling out to them, giving them hope, and we see Chibiusa and she goes back to the 30th century. They are all able to go back to their lives and live together, no matter what the future holds. They will all be together. Chaos was melted into the cauldron right now, and is so small they can't even find it. But one day, Chaos will return, but that is okay. Sailor Moon will protect them all. Then they added this scene for this movie. Usagi returns to her home, and this was added because the director thought it was important to add. When we see Usagi's mother cry when she left, he wanted to make sure that she came back to show that this was also the life that she chose, which I thought was a nice touch that he added. After the credits roll, we see the wedding of Mamoru and Usagi, and she sensed a new star was born inside of her. And we know what that means. Usagi's pregnant with Chibiusa. Mamoru and Usagi promise to be together forever, and that is also her promise to her friends as well. Eventually they will fade away, and a new generation will take over protecting the galaxy, but Sailor Moon will shine on forever. For the song that was used, it is called Happy Marriage Song, and this song was sung by the Japanese voice cast who played Usagi and all of her friends, including the voice actor who played Mamoru. This song was composed by Akiko Kosaka, and she actually worked on not only some of the Sailor Moon musicals, but she actually worked on the 90s series as well. One of the more popular songs she did was Moon Revenge, which you heard in the final climax of the movie Sailor Moon R. Now that I've completed the entire rewatch series of Crystal and reread the manga, I will say I did enjoy this series. For it being a recreation of all of the manga, it did do a good job with that. It stayed true to the manga, but that can also be a bad thing as well. With Sailor Moon being only 10 volumes long, there is not much space for character development like what we saw in the 90s series, because of ultimately a lot of the 90s series was filler, so you got to learn a lot about the characters. And if you watched all of my other breakdowns, you will see some things I called out that were in the manga and Crystal, and they were moments that never really got explained very well, and as a reader or viewer of the show, you just had to move on. You had to accept it and move on. The animation had some good and bad moments, but from what I read, there was also a lot of production issues with the first 2 seasons. And season 3 and then these movies have different animation teams, but I'm not going to sit here and critique them too harshly. I thought it was cool overall with all the homages that they paid to the older series as well. And then we see a note that says, "Thank you for watching. I'm truly grateful. May a bright and happy future come to you." And it's signed by Naoko Takeuchi. The last volume is not done. There's another cute side story of Chibiusa Yusa called The Secret Hammer Price Haul. But this last side story shows a bit of the future of the Guardians. It's called The Parallel Sailor Moon. It says this history takes place in a certain afternoon, in a certain town, of a certain country, on a certain planet, in a certain dimension, in the 7th month of the year 1999. We see that all the inner Guardians have now had children of their own, as well as Usagi has 2 kids now. Chibi-Yusa and Hotaru are going to the same school. Not sure how that would work out, but whatever. Moving on. Usagi's second child is a little bit younger than the other Guardians' children, and we see them living their everyday lives. They even show the kids transforming into Guardians, but they aren't sure if it was a dream, because the kids wake up and they're getting yelled at by Michiru because they're late for their cooking lessons, and that's so stinking cute. But overall, yet again, this movie did a really good job of keeping true to the manga, and I love reading the interviews with the cast to see how they worked to incorporate some homages to the original series as well. This was well done, and it will have a special place in my heart. My only thing with the English dub is I wish they got someone from the original cast to come back to play Sailor Cosmos like they did with the Japanese version. That would have been cool. I don't know who they could have gotten because there were 3 different voice actresses for Sailor Moon. Another thing about this final arc was that originally Naoko Takeuchi wanted to kill off the Guardians. They were all supposed to die at the end, but from what I read online is that she was advised not to do that, and I felt like it showed in this arc. Watching Usagi lose their friends and loved ones, this final arc was a dark one to say the least. But with that, I've covered all of the new Sailor Moon Crystal universe, TV shows, and movies. What do you guys think of this movie? Did you like it? Did you hate it? You like the homages that they did? Was there any homages that I missed? Let me know in the comments. I also have a link in the description to my Discord server. You can catch me in there and chit chat with me and a bunch of other people in there about anime, video games, comic books, music, anything under the sun. Feel free to join. Thank you everyone for your continued support, and remember to hit that like button and the subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time.